Выступает с лекциями на нашем факультете практически каждый семестр уже в течение нескольких лет. Поэтому я скорее даже уже назвал бы профессора нашим part-time или приглашенным профессором нашего факультета. И мы будем приглашать профессора Фреда Эйдлина в дальнейшем. Сегодняшняя лекция — это первая лекция из 3 лекций, которые в течение этой недели профессор Фред Эйдлин прочитает на нашем факультете. При входе на наш факультет есть объявление, тема лекции, когда они будут. Вторая лекция будет завтра в 14:45, третья лекция будет в среду в 13:00. Первая лекция сегодня — это место России в новом мировом порядке. Дальше я уже не буду делать более подробное вступление, профессор Эйдлин сам расскажет уже. Конечно, я понимаю, что вам легче слушать лекции на русском языке, но все-таки для того, чтобы вы тоже как-то ощутили себя в мультикультурной среде, поскольку политология — это интернациональная такая наука, международная, поэтому часть лекций будет на английском языке, часть на русском. Если вдруг какие-то сложности, я думаю, что тогда профессор сможет разъяснять это на русском языке, если вдруг какая-то терминология будет непонятна. И вот сейчас пока еще объявления нету, но я хочу вам сказать, так немножко забегая вперед, что в среду у нас планируется во второй половине дня круглый стол, посвященный годовщине профессора Эйдлина. Он согласился тоже выступить на этом круглом столе, тем более, что еще вчера профессор Эйдлин был в Симферополе. Вчера поздно вечером приехал из Симферополя, из Крыма, где профессор Эйдлин тоже читает лекции, выступает в университете. Это Таврический федеральный университет, да? И экономический институт. Да. Так что прошу, как говорят, любите жаловать, не стесняйтесь, задавайте вопросы, если они у вас есть, и пользуйтесь возможностью узнать у эксперта мнение относительно текущих и не только текущих событий. Пожалуйста.
Здравствуйте, добрый день. Это лекция, которую я подготовил перед кризисом. Это уже 2 года назад. Но интересно, когда самый просто надо добавить. Сначала мой тезис. Значит, что есть 2 аспекта современной ситуации. Это что на одной стороне Россия больше не супердержава. Ясно, да? Но на другой стороне ясно, что это не ничего. Это не как Чехия, это даже не как Франция. Это что-нибудь между. Но что точно? А я думаю, что часть проблемы, что Запад не привык думать, просто не знает, что делать с Россией с самого начала. Просто сначала это не было явной проблемой, сейчас это явная проблема. Это вот первый аспект. И второй аспект, что это тоже ясно, что Соединенные Штаты еще супердержава. Это тоже ясно. Но тоже ясно, что ее влияние в мире падает. И много американцев это уже понимают. Но что это значит конкретно для американской политики? И, по-моему, этот кризис так сумасшедший, потому что есть эти 2 очень неясные аспекта. Вот это мой главный тезис. Объяснение этого странного кризиса. Значит, если так, 2 года назад было бы возможно сказать, что очень трудно для посетителя из другого планета понимать, что говорят о России. На Западе. Россия друг и партнер, который сотрудничает с НАТО по пути демократии и свободным рынкам. Мы тоже авторитарная, так несовершенная демократия, не действительно настоящая рыночная экономика, ограниченная организованная преступность, коррупция, использование насилия в Чечне и в Грузии. Это значит вот такой образ. Позитивный аспект, отрицательный аспект, которые мы не знали, как их совместить. Были те, у которых не было иллюзии по поводу России. Это значит, я готовил после войны в Грузии. Значит, что были те, которые просто говорили, что вот видите, это точно, что мы вам говорили, что...
По старой советской традиции лектору нужно всегда стакан воды. Да, и объявление «Круглый стол по Крыму» были не 15 часов, а в 17 часов после 4-й пары, чтобы большее число наших студентов могло участвовать. Так что в среду у вас лекция в 13 часов, а круглый стол в 17, по 5 p.m.
Хорошо. Так значит, что были те, которые когда началась война в Грузии, которые сказали, вот видите, это все мы всегда вам говорим, что Россия не изменилась, это еще агрессивная страна, еще опасность для мира. Но главная мотивация присоединения к НАТО прибалтийских республик и стран бывшего Варшавского пакта быть на правильной стороне в следующий раз, когда Россия становится агрессором, еще империей. Значит, говорили тогда, что НАТО не направлено против России, на другой стороне это было очень ясно, почему прибалтийские страны и страны бывшего Варшавского пакта очень хотели присоединиться к НАТО. Очень интересно, я это не читаю, но я думаю, что очевидно, что НАТО не было антироссийской против присоединения этих стран. Это значит, присоединение восточноевропейских стран, бывших коммунистических стран и Прибалтики, это сделало НАТО более антироссийским. Российская интервенция в Северной Осетии и в Грузии точно, что лидеры Эстонии, Украины, Польши ожидали. И сенатор Маккейн по поводу Путина, вы знаете, что президент Буш сказал, я смотрел в его глаза, и я получил смысл в его душе. Маккейн сказал, я смотрел в его глаза, и я видел только КГБ. Ну вот, это когда началась война в Грузии, лидеры прибалтийских стран не ждали. Они не ждали до того, что было какое-то объяснение, какие-то факты. Они сразу улетели в Тбилиси, как вы видите. Возникает вопрос, смирилась Россия с потерей империи? И пишет Роберт Бейер в влиятельном Time Magazine, российское вторжение в Грузию менее связано с Южной Осетией, чем с фактом, что Россия никогда не смирилась с потерей империи, и что все время обращается к ней как держава второй степени. И Бер продолжает, что Вашингтон обманывает себя. С развалом Советского Союза 17 лет назад именно Вашингтон обманывает себя. Убеждение, что Америка был как-то реальным соперником России в южной части бывшего Советского Союза, в тех 8 государствах, которые составляют Кавказ и бывшую Центральную Азию, определяет взгляд российской элиты. Российской элитой очень трудно осваивать, извините за ошибки, это не быстро, действительность, что Российская империя и статус как мировая держава исчезла навсегда. Ностальгия еще определяет взгляд элиты и препятствует ее способность приспосабливаться к Западу. Россия пытается совместить несовместимое. Хочет, чтобы Россия была включена в Западе, но хочет, чтобы это включение состоялось с условиями, которые бы допустили, чтобы Россия сохранила такой империалистический багаж, как его война против чеченцев и ее неоправданное желание быть признана как мировая держава. И, утверждает Крижинский, Россия должна приспосабливаться к Западе при условиях Запада. Вот интересно, что он так четко сказал. И это не говорят очень много американцев, но я убежден, что большинство так думает. Что вот, ошибка России, что не хочет приспосабливаться к условиям Запада. Растающее понимание геополитической действительности должно помогать России понимать, что она должна приспосабливаться к Западу и условиям Запада или страдать от изоляции и осужденной к растающим затруднениям. Вот первая перспектива. Грузия, война в Грузии, это было только что мы ожидали, а мы вам говорили. Это не сюрприз. Другая перспектива на Россию в мире. Первый вопрос. Вы знаете, что очень много цитируют, что Путин сказал, что развал Советского Союза была величайшая катастрофа 20-го столетия. Это правда, что Путин защищает советский режим. Но смотрим на два другие цитаты. Путин тоже сказал, идеология Советской коммунистической партии и ее экономическая и внутренняя политика приводил к развалу страны. И второй, кто не жалеет развал Советского Союза, не имеет сердца. Кто хочет ее вернуть в ее бывшей форме, не имеет голову. Значит, вот, очень интересно сказал в 1995 году на лекции в Праге российский посол, а я никогда не забыл это. Когда он сказал, Россия – это новая страна, это не Российская империя, и Россия не Советский Союз. Россия – новая страна, и никто ничего не знает о ней. И поскольку никто о ней ничего не знает, любой человек может сказать о ней, что хочет. Очень важно. Интересно, вы можете сейчас сказать, что сейчас мы знаем Россию, потому что уже проходило 22 лет. Но надо добавить, что я считаю, что посол был прав. Вот это, что случилось потом, было, что интерес к России падал резко. Значит, что тогда, когда был Советский Союз, но были глупые специалисты в Америке, но было тоже очень способные, умные, мудрые люди, как Джордж Кеннон, ну, как Генри Киссинджер. Это значит, что было очень высокое качество. Были люди высокого качества. И после развала Советского Союза резко падал интерес к России. И значит, что они не понимали, что происходит. Никто не сосредоточился на Россию и сказал, а как динамика, как работает эта новая система. Не только какие слабости, но какие возможности изменить эту систему. Так, очень мало людей действительно сосредоточены на самой важной проблеме понимания современной России. И поэтому, что определил знания о России, это были старые стереотипы. Когда Россия делала, что Америка хотела, никто не обращал внимания, потому что предположили, что это нормально. Но если Россия когда-нибудь не согласилась с американскими взглядами, это значит, вот, видите, не изменилось. Это Советский Союз light, так думали. А недавно писал Дмитрий Тренин, что Россия с самого начала была country on probation. Это значит, как преступник, который пустит из тюрьмы, но который еще преступник, да? А значит, что до украинского кризиса Россия была on probation, и сейчас преступник, пишет Тренин. Расширение НАТО. Обещание Горбачева НАТО, что нет намерения расширить НАТО за пределы Германии. Российский посол, тот же самый посол, сказал, что представьте себе, вы сидите в Кремле и смотрите, как НАТО сближается к вашим границам. Так, что вы будете, против кого этот альянс намерен? Вы бы не спрашивали себе. Would you not at some point wonder against whom this alliance was directed? Или Путин, он сказал, что в 90-м году была гарантия, что не будет размещения войска НАТО за пределом границ Германии. А где сейчас эти гарантии? И сказал дальше, и кто это был, который снимал Берлинскую стену? Это было мы, народ России. И он добавляет, который тоже избрал путь демократизации, свободным рынкам и так далее. Я хотел показать немножко из этого. Если вы не видели это выступление Путина, это очень важно, и это в интернете. Munich Security Conference, 2007 год. Я вернусь к этому, потому что я буду говорить о том, как было российская заграничная политика фрустрирована со самого начала. Самый прозападный, самый прозападный министр иностранных дел России Андрей Козырев Он после 6 месяцев он был так фрустрирован, что выступал в Стокгольме с шоковой терапией. Я вернусь к этому. И вот это выступление Путина, это тоже была попытка использовать шоковую терапию. Okay, so now to English. Okay, so now let's go back and try and take this apart. I mean, okay, so what was really happening inside Russia that nobody in America was paying attention to? So, let's go right to the source, Putin. 2007, Putin gave a very important speech, which was widely distributed in a pamphlet, and it was called Toward the Year 2020. So, Putin said, what were things like, what was the situation like when I became president in 2000? He said, terrorist invasion of Dagestan, which was a direct consequence of Chechnya, essentially separated from Russia, outside forces, meaning international Islam, interested in weakening Russia and even bringing about its collapse, were openly inciting the separatists. So my question is, when I give this lecture in the West, I say with each point, it's not true. Is this just, they're always referring to the, the dreams and mistaken illusions that you get on television. And so I think we have to be concrete. So can they really answer and say, oh no, there was no danger from outside forces. There was no danger. Nobody was trying to bring about the collapse of Russia. So when you say it that way, it sounds rather ridiculous. Of course there was a danger. Putin continues. Emissaries from Al-Qaeda oversaw terrorist training camps, self-proclaimed Congress of the People's Iskaria and Dagestan, declared the goal of establishing a fundamentalist caliphate from the Black Sea to the Caspian. Not true? And what's also interesting is that in reporting, journalistic reporting on Chechnya during the war, nobody paid any attention to this at all. Like what this always appeared in the American press. I can't speak for the whole West here, because, by the way, the Western countries are very different in their knowledge of Russia. If you look at the German media, for example, you find that there are many journalists who understand Russia quite well. And I didn't follow the German media closely at this time, but I can tell you for sure that you would never find anything in the American media which pointed out that, Russia is facing the same terrorist threat that we are. It was always, Russia is brutally repressing the poor Chechens who only want independence. That's the way it was seen.
Freda, excuse me. If you can slow down.
Slow. So, Putin says, what could we respond with? Our armed forces were demoralized, not prepared for combat. Military servicemen received a pittance, which even then was not always paid in time. Equipment was becoming outdated at an alarming rate. Not true. Our defense industry, choked by debts and its human resources and production base shrinking. Not true. And now he says, so since I became president, Russia has returned to the world stage as a strong state, a country others heed, pay attention to, that can stand up for itself. We have built up a substantial foreign policy capital that is now contributing to our country's development and working to protect the interests of our people and our national business. Okay, now I would like to propose to you a thought experiment. So let's say Putin decided, okay, it's too much trouble for Russia to maintain an independent foreign policy. We will just ask NATO, will you take responsibility for Russia's security? Try that. So, would Russia be secure? So, and go beyond the question, no, it wouldn't be secure. Just, like political science students, ask yourselves, why not? Why would Russia not be secure if NATO took over responsibility for its security? So I would say the most obvious is that NATO does not understand Russia's problems. It's very complicated, big country. That's just the beginning. Next question. Would the breakup of the Russian Federation promote world security? If Russia broke up, would the world peace be more secure? And what would a fundamentalist caliphate from the Black Sea to the Caspian mean for Russia, for the world? Would it be a good thing? Okay, so my view is that, yeah, to some extent, Baer is right that Russia is not reconciled to being a second-rate power. But it's not nearly as simple as Brzezinski, Baer, and others in the West see it. So my view is that the kinds of aspirations that Russian foreign policy makers have been articulating should not be alarming. Looking at it from the West, if I were sitting there as Secretary of State, I wouldn't see anything to worry about, right? Basically, if you look at it more carefully, if you look without the stereotypes, without the memories of relations with the Soviet Union, and you say, okay, what are America's real security interests, and what are Russia's real security interests, and where's the conflict between them? So I would say there aren't any, or very few, and no really serious ones. If you make a list of these interests, I think you find that they complement each other. For example, one thing I've always been puzzled about is take the Middle East. Like, you have so many excellent specialists on the Middle East. So you could, institutes, departments, and universities. You have very strong expertise in the Middle East. So we don't have anything. We don't understand the Middle East at all. So I think the United States would benefit greatly by using Russian expertise to deal with the problems of the Middle East, which are, I tried this on many Americans. I said, why don't we just let Russia take the lead in the Middle East? And they said, no, that's impossible. So why? Well, we can't trust them. Okay, I said, I'm not asking you to let them take over in actually making the policy. I'm just saying, let them give us advice, right? Let Russia take the lead by using the imagination of the experts in the Russian Middle East expert community. And somehow, the Americans that I talk to, they can't let that into their head. Okay, now, further to this thing about great power and why I think Brzezinski was Brzezinski's view is, I think, basically ignorant. 1992, I led a group of students to Moscow for a course in political science. And we noticed that FSB had opened a, what was it called, for связи с общественностью. So we thought, that would be interesting for our students. Let's see if they'll receive us. So I wrote to the начальник, and we were received by a colonel and a major of the FSB from this newly established office for contacts with the public. So there I am back in 1992, sitting with Polkovnik and Mayor. So I asked the first question. I said, I asked the colonel, what will be the role of your organization in the new democratic Russia? I never forgot his answer. The role of our organization, he said, would proceed from the fact that Russia is a great power. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I like it. I would prefer that our country were like Switzerland, but it's not. Now, I should tell you, like, how did I feel about it then? Like, going back to 1992, most of you certainly don't remember this, except your teachers. But the idea that Russia is a great power, like, we looked and you had this complete chaos, and so very weak, and this Yeltsin running the country, sometimes behaving like a fool, and this is supposed to be a great power. So I'll tell you, listening to his answer then sounded a little bit funny. But see, later on, as I watched this happening, I remembered what he said. So what is it about Russia that makes it impossible for it to be like Switzerland? Look at the size. Look at the number of neighbors, not all of which are friendly. So you could make a list again of reasons why. Why can Russia not be like Switzerland? Why is Russia, I would say, doomed to be a great power, whether it likes it or not? So, literally speaking, I would suggest, and then you can disagree with me, that in order to survive, Russia needs this independent foreign policy, which Putin is always talking about so proudly. Okay, so going back to Baer's statement, Russia is not reconciled to losing an empire. Well, it's not 100% false, but it is dangerously misleading. First of all, as I think we've seen, I wrote this after the war in Georgia, but now what we have seen happening since then, I would say, the West has absolutely no interest in creating an angry Russia or in feeding Russian suspicion, which is already strong enough. Now, that's more true of the United States than of Europe, because Americans are not thinking like that, whether Russia is angry. In fact, I remember former Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, was asked a question, I forget the exact detail, about was he doing this with the Russians, but he said, worrying about how the Russians feel, it's not at the top of my to-do list. He was saying the attitude of most Americans was, if you said, it's not in our interest to make an angry Russia or feed Russia suspicion, again, it wouldn't go into their head. Just, they might listen, but it wouldn't get through to the thinking, intelligence part. Okay, so as a matter of fact, I've been following this since the Soviet Union broke up. And I have not seen the slightest indication, нет показателей, that there's any interest in putting the Soviet Union back together. I mean, the Americans have forgotten that the Soviet foreign policy elite already developed a very strong view that the empire is a burden. It's too much to worry about. Get rid of this Central Asia and get rid of the Baltics. Too much trouble, right? So I think that, as I see it, at least the mainstream of Russian foreign policy thinking thinks that the territory of the Russian Federation is fine. And I think especially after Crimea now. Why does Russia need more territory? And you correct me if you think I'm wrong, tell me that you know something about Russian foreign policy which proves me wrong. Let me know. I haven't seen anything that suggests that Russia wants to put the USSR back together. Dmitry Trenin, as usual, put it very well. He distinguished between spheres of interest and spheres of influence. And he said, like, interest is not the same thing as influence. And it's obvious that Russia has strong interests, many strong interests, in the republics of the former Soviet Union, but it doesn't want to manage them all. It's clear. And again, Western thinking doesn't make this distinction enough that the interest is obvious, and you can see expressions of it all the time, and yet it's not synonymous with the sphere of influence. And I might add something I didn't put into the slides. I keep hearing in Ukraine, the Ukrainians say all the time, well, we have a right to decide which alliances we belong to, right? We are a sovereign country. We have the right to decide by ourselves. Right. And Cuba was a sovereign country, and it had the right to make a decision to ally itself with the Soviet Union. And then what happened? Did the United States show the attitude of, oh, okay, that's what Cuba wants? It's a sovereign country. And some writers have raised this question again, saying, what if China or Russia formed a new alliance containing Canada and Mexico and kept the United States out? How would the United States react to that? So Russia has continually asserted since the breakup of the USSR that it has special interests in the former Soviet Republic. There's an article written by Andrei Kozyrev in NATO Review. It means that the whole American foreign policy elite should have seen Kozyrev's article, where he says this clearly. So having interests and influence is far from wanting to put the empire back together. Now, more detail about Kozyrev. Kozyrev was the first and most pro-Western Russian foreign minister to date. He was criticized inside Russia for being too pro-Western, and he was removed in 1996 for this reason. So there was this article in 1993 where Kozyrev briefly summarized the central aims of Russian foreign policy. And I would suggest to you that you do what I did. So read Kozyrev's article in NATO Review, and then ask yourself, have the aims of Russian foreign policy changed? I say no. I say what's changed dramatically has been the methods of pursuing these aims. When Kozyrev was foreign minister, the method was join the West. So it became clear to the Russian foreign policy elite, it didn't work. Joining the West did not work. And so the means of pursuing these aims changed. But again, if you can tell me any central aims that are different now, I would like to know. Now, I should point out that there has been change of emphasis, right? So even Kozyrev saw Russia as being a big player on the world scene, like as a member of the Security Council, okay? So even then, but the point is, I think that since Kozyrev's article, it has become clearer to the Russian foreign policy elite that Russia must be strong. That's a change. But again, that's an instrument. The aim is still the same. So this is Kozyrev. Kozyrev writes, our present policy embodies the genuine national and state interests of a great power, which recognizes and is implementing its responsibilities as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. It should not be forgotten that the Commonwealth of Independent States brings together people who have been linked to Russia for centuries. It is also obvious that the entire geographic area of the former USSR is a sphere of vital interest to us. This one is really interesting. The Russian-speaking populations of the former USSR. Like, you could put it this way. You could say, the people who woke up and about them. So Kozyrev said, the situation of the Russian-speaking population in the states of the former USSR presents a considerable and complex problem for the Russian Federation's foreign policy and diplomacy. Now get this. We are counting on support from NATO members to help ensure protection for the rights, life, and dignity of the Russian minorities. Major humanitarian problem, stability in an enormous region. So think about it. Did NATO give any assistance in addressing these human rights problems? It's an important question because now, see, since nobody in America paid any attention at the time, see, I wonder, did anybody read Kozyrev's article? Did anybody in Washington read the official Russian foreign policy? Well, again, maybe somebody, today you could say naively, expecting that NATO was going to help. And yet, NATO allowed in countries, as members of NATO, countries that have problems with the rights of their Russian-speaking minorities, like the Baltic countries. So they're members of NATO. They're members of the European Union, also, which has human rights guarantees. So why don't NATO and the European Union put pressure on these countries? I mean, they're small. They couldn't. If the EU or NATO put pressure on them, how could they resist? But they don't. And here's Kozyrev saying, we are counting on support from NATO member. Oh, yeah, I forgot my main point. My main point was that it's outrageous that Russia is claiming some right to defend these Russian-speaking minorities. Outrageous. Who gave them the right? So my answer is, Russia didn't claim the right. Russia wanted to do it together with NATO. And it's only because, well, NATO didn't, who's left? And it was the same thing with the frozen conflicts. So why were Russian soldiers in Severna Ossetia? Well, after the war, there was a peacekeeping mission set up, and the only countries that were interested in it were Russia and Georgia. So there could have been more countries, the United Nations could have done it, but wasn't interested. When conflict started, they all started in the Soviet period. So everybody forgets how Russia became involved in the frozen conflicts, and everybody thinks Russia likes frozen conflicts. And nobody in America sees this problem that, look, okay, Georgians didn't want to be part of the Soviet Union, but there were also ethnic groups inside Georgia who didn't want to be part of Georgia. Nobody sees that. Relations with Eastern Europe. You know, like the Poles are already starting to build their special forces to protect against a Russian invasion. Here's what Kozyrev says. Relations with the nations of Eastern Europe. It is vital for us to achieve a fundamentally new level of political and economic links, making use of the future of Eastern Europe lies in its transformation, not into some kind of buffer zone, but into a bridge. Estonia many times in 1989, 1990. And I think 1990, I was interviewed by the newspaper Respublika, and they gave the interview the title, Estonia, Okno na Rossiyu. So the way I saw it at the time, the most sensible policy that Estonia could follow would be to be like a window in Russia, because it had all this experience with the Soviet system. At the same time, it had this Western culture, this Protestant ethic economic culture, and so Estonia could have become a very valuable middle mediator, not just mediator. Could have, but what did they do? Instead, they chose to become a backwater of the European Union, like pretty useless for the European Union. And in fact, you know, now most people are talking about the success of the Baltic countries, but actually, look more closely, they seem to be dying. Estonia, for example, has the worst demographic problem in the world. And in the Baltic countries, not only Russian-speaking people, but in Latvia, Latvian-speaking people, in Estonia, Estonians, they're leaving. And so they're going to face a crisis. But when the crisis comes, nobody will ever say, well, maybe we should have given more thought to our role in the world when the Soviet Union broke up. Okay, now back to Kozyrev. I told you that in his first year with his policy of join the West, just what Brzezinski wanted, he became so frustrated that in December 1992, at the Stockholm ministerial meeting of the Conference on Security and Cooperation, he gave a hardline speech that shocked the world. Kozyrev said Moscow would move to retake the countries that used to belong to the USSR. It would back Serbia in Bosnia and oppose the West on a variety of other points. So the delegates, the foreign ministers, the other diplomats, they ran to the telephone to phone their governments and ask, well, what do we do? You know, like Kozyrev's gone back to Soviet policies. So shortly after, he returned to the microphone and he said his speech had been a joke. He said, but he warned that all the views in his speech were being expressed by Yeltsin's hawkish critics. And if the West continued to treat Russia as it was doing, it would likely hear such views expressed in seriousness by some future Russian foreign minister. Now, understanding without learning. The leaders of most countries, including the delegates who were there, including the United States, expressed understanding for Kozyre's position. Many approached Kozyre after the speech, and they said they understood his position. And I think Kozyre thought he succeeded because he then wrote that article in NATO Review in 1993, and another article in NATO Review in 1994. But the policies the West was to develop regarding Russia failed badly to take Kozyre's lesson to heart. Now, another very important article, and it appeared in Foreign Affairs, which is the flagship, the main journal of the American foreign policy establishment. Dmitry Simes, the president of the Nixon Center, or now called the Center for the National Interest, wrote an article called Losing Russia in 2007. And Simes writes that Washington's crucial error lay in the propensity to treat post-Soviet Russia as a defeated enemy. US diplomatic behavior has left the unmistakable impression that making Russia a strategic partner, which was official policy, was never a major priority. The Clinton and Bush administrations assumed that when Russian cooperation was needed, it could be secured without effort or accommodation. So Simes continues, the mistake was taking advantage of Russia's weakness. That was the Clinton administration's greatest failure. They tried to get as much as possible, politically, economically, and in the area of security in Europe, before Russia recovered from its transition, tumultuous transition. They believed that Moscow's preferences could be safely ignored if they did not align with Washington's goals. So actually, this is a theme you can see in what especially Putin, but also Lavrov, have been saying. Like they say, we made this proposal and the Americans didn't answer. Or we made this proposal and the Americans said, it's not your business. You know, like at the beginning of the Ukraine crisis, the common Russian Yanukovych position was that Ukraine signing the association agreement would have serious consequences for the Russian economy. So Russia should be included in three-way talks: Ukraine, Russia, European Union. And European Union's response was, it's none of your business. And then, but then after the crisis, the European Union recognized this problem and as a step, these three-way negotiations go on. So actually I want to put in here that my view is that a very important role, very important, is played by stupidity, ignorance, simply people, diplomats, leaders of countries, not understanding what they're doing. It's a large part of the problem. So Kozyrev in 1992, as I said, and Putin in 2007 understood that the West was not listening. Oh, another interesting story. You know about Snowden, right? The Snowden case where he, okay, so the Americans said, you know, give him back to us. So the Russian position was, well, we don't give anybody back unless we have an extradition treaty. So what didn't get into our news is that 1 year before Snowden came to Moscow, Russia proposed an extradition treaty to the United States. The proposal was never answered. There was no response. I think the journalist pointed this out, that we can't extradite him because there's no extradition treaty. And the American representative said, we're not asking you to extradite him, we're asking you to turn him over. Putin had realized by his third term as president that more was needed than shock. Russia had to compel the West to take Russia seriously. Now, this is very important because, like, as I said in the beginning, so the two poles are clear. Like, Soviet Union was a superpower, and Russia is not a superpower now. So where is Russia? And in order to answer that question intelligently, you have to know something about Russia. And the Americans don't know anything about Russia. And what they know is badly distorted by old stereotypes. So Putin realized that the West had to be forced to take Russia seriously. Shock therapy didn't work. And about at the same time, Obama reached the conclusion Russia could be deprioritized. So that's also part of American consciousness, which is Russia's just not important. And a lot of the things we're doing, we're just playing that Russia's important. So what we're going to do now is we're going to deprioritize Russia. So there's a parallel to what Obama was thinking and what Putin was thinking. But the point is that the United States doesn't understand Russia's importance. And that's why Obama was able to get the idea that Russia could be deprioritized. Ukraine was what we call the last straw. And my view is, regardless of right or wrong, I think it's true that if Russia had not asserted itself forcefully after the coup d'etat in Kiev, the question would arise as to whether it could ever draw a red line that would be taken seriously. So, if you go back to the Ukraine crisis and you look at Russian behavior in Ukraine, basically it was pretty passive, just watching carefully. So the first stage was there was this financial crisis, and it became clear that neither Europe nor the United States was prepared to rescue Ukraine. And then Putin made this offer of 15 billion euros loan. So until it became clear that Europe and the United States were not going to do anything, Russia didn't also. Russia was pretty much of a bystander, didn't participate in the that agreement with Yanukovych, but actually it was Putin who persuaded Yanukovych to sign. So the agreement was signed, and the next day the presidential palace and the Verkhovna Rada were attacked by force. Okay, and that's the point where, like, just ask yourself the question, you're sitting in the Kremlin, what do you do? I mean, one argument that the population of Crimea was a danger, I think it was, but you can argue about it. You can say it wasn't. Most observers in the West are saying this danger is just in the heads of many Russians. There was no danger, ridiculous. But I think one thing was clear, and that was, if once this regime in Kiev became stabilized, it would quickly tell Russia, get out of Sevastopol. That's clear. And I believe that was already in NATO's plans. There's some evidence, there was a contract offered by the United States Navy for remodeling a school in Sevastopol. So there already, it seems to be, were even technical plans about moving into Sevastopol. So the question is, both, you have to, if you take both the real strategic interests of Russia in the maritime area, plus the symbolic importance of Sevastopol, what do you do? But there have been 4 sociological surveys done in Crimea which show that most people think that the referendum was around 85%. So it's not only the referendum itself, but it's the sociological surveys that have been taken. And actually, one of them was commissioned by anti-Russian Ukrainians who expected results that would show the opposite. So think about this. There was a higher proportion of Crimeans who wanted to unify with Russia than East Germans who wanted to unify with West Germany. There was a majority in both Czechia and Slovakia that did not want Czechoslovakia to break up. There was no referendum at all in Kosovo. Okay, so this raises the question, why the panic about Crimea? I mean, I think it's Article 1 or Article 2 of the UN Charters calls national self-determination the main principle in the international order. So why is the West so panicked about Crimea? Well, the short answer is, it's the first serious challenge to the illusion of a permanent post-Soviet settlement. In other words, what happened in 1992, it just looked so, which started to happen with the collapse of the Soviet bloc. But it all happened so peacefully that at the time, the illusion existed. Now finally people are free, so there will be peace forever under the protection of the United States. So this now, that illusion has prevailed ever since. And Crimea challenges it, because if it's okay for one country to, well, I don't think annexation is the right word, but certainly Russia helped Crimea to join Russia. So if that's okay, then aren't there other places where this could happen? Right? And that's the main reason why so many countries feel that this is very, very serious. Now again, part of this feeling is because they don't know anything. Knowledge and understanding of Russia in the West, as I said, has declined dramatically since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and it explains why so many people see Crimea as the first step to conquest of all of Europe. So, you know, look at what the Baltics are saying now. They're saying next step will be a Russian occupation of the Baltics. Now, I think anybody who knows about Russian foreign policy would say, it's crazy. There's not the slightest indication that there's any interest in the Russian leadership of occupying the Baltics. But here they are, already demanding that NATO put forces in the Baltics. Now, the final conclusion, you know, there are people in Russia who are very upset also, who are writing in the newspaper. I just read yesterday an article which said the costs of Crimea are so high that it's a disastrous mistake because Russia will pay and pay and pay. Actually, if you look at it through the prism that I've presented and say it's absolutely vital for Russia to be taken seriously, you know, I would say all of these interests boil down to one simple point. The people who make Russian foreign policy have realized that the main instrumental goal is to be taken seriously. And if that's the case, the uncertainty that has been created by Crimea may not be bad for Russia, since it will have forced people to begin to think, right? So what I mean is, so there's all of this extreme rhetoric about Russia's rebuilding the empire, Russia is an aggressor, and so on. But then, what happens if Russia turns out as the peacekeeper? What if Russia turns out to be the peacekeeper in Ukraine? Which is very possible. And what happens, like already, it started, like in the last week, I've read 2 articles in Western media which point out, hey, you know, there have been 4 sociological surveys which show the support for joining Russia in Crimea. So maybe, as world consciousness begins to actually look at things and think about them, then maybe this will put things more in perspective, see? And maybe people will have a little bit of fear of Russia, but maybe that's a good thing. Okay? So we can, мы можем обсуждать на русском, просто я не закончил перевод. Пожалуйста, несогласия, вопросы.
Пожалуйста, коллеги. Вопросы, Фреда. Выступление, реплики, высказывания. Вопрос такой.